4:30 p.m. Be at the determined location. 6:30 p.m. Ingest capsules. These were the cryptic instructions found next to the bodies of two men on a remote hill in Brazil. They were dressed in pristine suits, but their faces were covered by crude masks made of lead. There were no signs of violence, no clear cause of death. What signal were they waiting for? And did it arrive?
Welcome to the Kronos Dossier. I present the case. You take on the role of the detective. Analyze the clues, study the suspects, and in the end, the only truth will be the one you can prove. Let us proceed to today's case.
The cold gray light of morning on Saturday, August 20th, 1966, revealed a scene that seemed torn from the pages of grim science fiction. Atop Vintem Hill, an elevation covered in dense vegetation in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, a young boy searching for his lost kite stumbled upon the unthinkable. There, lying side by side on a makeshift bed of leaves, were the bodies of two men. The quiet of the location was unsettling, but the sheer strangeness of the scene was what truly chilled the soul. The men, later identified as 34-year-old Miguel José Viana and 32-year-old Manuel Pereira da Cruz, were dressed in a formal and paradoxical manner. Each wore a well-cut suit over which lay a raincoat. The formality of their attire contrasted violently with the wild environment and with the most grotesque and inexplicable detail. Over their faces, covering the region of their eyes, both wore rustic masks molded from raw lead. Miguel, the elder of the two, was a man of marked features, with dark hair and a gaze that, according to friends, shifted between extreme concentration and a distant melancholy. Manuel, in turn, had a more robust appearance, with a rounder face and the air of a man deeply dedicated to his craft. They were electronics technicians, partners in a small workshop in the city of Campos dos Goitacazes, and their lives, until that point, had seemed entirely ordinary. They had told their wives on August 17th that they were traveling to São Paulo to purchase a car and new electronic components for their work. They carried with them a considerable sum of money, approximately 2 million cruzeiros. However, their final destination was not the bustling capital of São Paulo, but the silent peak of that hill in Niterói. The police, upon their arrival, found a scene that was meticulously arranged and disturbingly ambiguous. Besides the bodies and the masks, there was an empty bottle of magnesium mineral water, 2 towels, and a small notebook. Inside the notebook, a cryptic note, written in precise handwriting, dictated a kind of schedule. 4:30 p.m. Be at the determined location. 6:30 p.m. Ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals, await mask signal. The medical examiners who inspected the bodies found no signs of violence, no gunshot or stab wounds, and no indication of a struggle. The advanced state of decomposition prevented a conclusive toxicological examination at the time, leaving the cause of death as undetermined. The large sum of money they were carrying was never found. What could have possibly happened to Miguel and Manuel on that isolated plateau between 4:30 p.m. and the moment their hearts stopped beating? The Kronos Dossier now delves into the main lines of investigation that surround this enigma.
The first and most fantastic of the theories points to the heavens. On the night of August 17th, the same night Miguel and Manuel ascended the hill, numerous reports flooded the police stations and newspaper offices of Niterói. Residents of the neighborhoods near Vintem Hill, such as a housewife named Gracinda Barbosa, described seeing an unidentified flying object, oval-shaped and emitting an intense orange-red glow, hovering silently over the hill's summit. The object, according to witnesses, remained static for several minutes before disappearing at an incredible speed. For proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, the sequence of events is clear. Miguel and Manuel, with their knowledge of electronics, were perhaps attempting to establish contact. The note would be a set of instructions received from an alien intelligence. The lead masks would serve as protection against radiation emitted by the supposed craft. And the order to protect metals was meant to prevent interference. The capsules could have been some element necessary to facilitate this interplanetary communication. In this narrative, something went catastrophically wrong. Were they victims of an unknown energy, a fatal side effect of the signal they awaited? The absence of physical violence and the bizarre nature of the scene fuel the imagination, suggesting a cause of death that transcends the understanding of forensic science of that era.
However, a second line of investigation pulls us from the cosmos into the recesses of the human mind and faith. Miguel and Manuel were not just technicians. Friends and family revealed that both were members of a group of scientific spiritualists, individuals who sought to merge mysticism with technology, attempting to prove the existence of life after death and contact other dimensions. One of their acquaintances, a man named Elcio Correa Gomez, was a central figure in this theory. Elcio, an electrician who shared their interests, stated in his testimony that the group used to conduct experiments in isolated locations. He described Miguel and Manuel as men obsessed with establishing contact with superior intelligences, whether they were spirits or beings from other planes. According to Elcio, these experiments involved the use of psychedelic drugs to expand consciousness and open portals. Elcio's alibi for the night of the incident was considered solid by the police, who found no evidence of his direct involvement. Nevertheless, his description of their rituals casts a grim light on the case. The capsules mentioned in the note would therefore be doses of some hallucinogenic substance. The procedure described, protecting metals, awaiting a signal, would be part of an elaborate ritual where the lead masks could have served to block normal sensory perception and force an inner vision. Death in this scenario would have been an accidental overdose, a psychedelic journey from which they never returned. The duo's history corroborated this thesis. Months earlier, at Atafona Beach, they had reportedly caused a mysterious explosion during one of their experiments, an event that even drew the attention of the Brazilian Navy and demonstrated a dangerous inclination for recklessness in their quest for the unknown. Finally, the third theory pulls us away from the supernatural and throws us onto the brutal terrain of crime. The police never dismissed the possibility of a robbery-homicide, though the absence of violence is a major obstacle for this hypothesis. The fact remains that the two technicians were carrying a large sum of money that vanished. What if the meeting on Vintem Hill was not with aliens or spirits, but with criminals? As electronics technicians, Miguel and Manuel possessed skills that could be valuable to the underworld. This theory suggests they were involved in some illegal activity, perhaps smuggling electronic components, or, more dangerously, some sensitive or radioactive material, which would justify the lead masks as a protective measure, however rudimentary. The meeting on the hill would have been the site of the transaction. The capsules could have been poison, which they were forced to ingest when the deal went wrong. A suspect who would fit this profile was never formally named, but police at the time investigated a known local smuggler, a robust and tight-lipped man known only as Oalalea-Lemou, or the German. He operated on the docks and had a reputation for solving his problems in a silent and lethal manner. He had knowledge of outsiders with money arriving in town and conveniently left the city a few days after the bodies were discovered. His alibi was fragile, claiming to be in another city but with no reliable witnesses. Without concrete proof, the German remained merely a shadow in the case files. Had he lured the duo into a trap, stolen their money, and eliminated them in a way that mimicked a pact or a ritual? A contact with the unknown? A ritual that tore the veil of reality, or a dangerous deal that ended in tragedy? 3 theories, 1 scene, and a host of unanswered questions. The lead masks, now preserved as artifacts of one of Brazil's greatest mysteries, remain the silent symbol of the secret that was buried with Miguel and Manuel atop Vintem Hill. What do you believe happened? The clues are ambiguous, the paths diverge, and the truth remains hidden beneath the mists of time. Analyze the facts, weigh the possibilities, and share your theories in the comments. The Kronos Dossier is open.
And here, the file ends. The clues have been presented, the motives are on the table, and the alibis are fragile. Now, the work is yours. Who is the culprit, and how did they do it? Leave your complete theory in the comments. The Kronos Dossier community is waiting to analyze your verdict. Until the next case.